Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Hudak. Saints had their preseason opener on Saturday. They fall to the Houston Texans. Disappointing end of the ball game, but I feel like we learned a lot about this team. Maddy, Hudak, who's joining us throughout training camp for our Saints camp reports, good enough to join us now to recap the preseason opener for the Saints. Maddy, we appreciate it. How are you?
I'm good. Seeing just some illuminating things, good and bad, on that Saints film.
Yeah, it's let's start defensively, because I think everyone, when they've talked about this game, at least everyone I've spoken to, has started with Chase Hansen. And we've wondered if the Saints have or can develop good linebacker depth. He was obviously a standout. What should we take realistically from the day that Chase Hansen had?
We talked a couple times on the show, right, about with Pete Werner going down, do the Saints have enough linebacker depth? And Caden Ellis has kind of been a fill-in the past, but Chase Hansen, I mean, if you talk about someone that makes plays, he had 4 solo tackles, 5 combined. He's the only one on the team with a tackle for loss, and he had 2 for that matter, and an interception and a pass deflection. Was he out of place a little bit on 1 or 2 plays? Sure, but he's not your starter, and he really looked like one out there. And what really impressed me was his instincts and coverage, kind of going sideline to sideline and really going back into the backfield to, wrap up those tackles for loss by running back, especially with the pass rush, not really getting to the quarterback and not really stopping anything in that aspect. It's nice to see a linebacker kind of tear into that backfield.
Yeah, Maddy, for the majority of the day, the defense was pretty spectacular. What about in the secondary, where the starters were obviously sitting? Who stood out mostly in the secondary to you?
There's a lot of tandems that did really well together. May and Williams started out, and then it really turned to Williams and JT Gray. What sticks out to me is that, they have a run-stopping secondary, and that's not, what you normally say first about a secondary, but they all really want to come down and stop the run and tear into that backfield. Justin Evans, he's the one who looked the most fantastic to me. He spent time in the slot. He spent time at single high safety, and just his kind of instincts back there, seeing a run play. And that's really where you see the difference this year in this safety group. Marcus Williams offered so much in the passing game, but he didn't really seem to come downfield and just tear back there and wrap up someone for a tackle for a loss. Justin Evans did that multiple times. His interception, just his ability to kind of time that, he just really stood out to me. And then JT Gray is someone I brought up. He's never going to be, that shiny name, but he had a lot of sideline plays. He had a lot of good plays in coverage and also a lot of run stops. So really it was kind of all around the board back there. And it's one of those things where if the starting tandem in some way goes down, there's so many pieces there, and they can really communicate well. Especially you can see that when they're in that split backfield, split safety coming down to stop the run.
What about the pass rush, Maddy? Anything stand out for you there?
Jeff Driscoll is running around quite a bit, right? That was kind of the issue last season, and you don't have your starting guys out there, but you're kind of hoping for something from guys like Contavious Street, who they signed this offseason, Jordan Jackson, who kind of showed up quite a bit, because we always talk about it with the depth on that line, and their Onyemata suspension last year could Shai Tuttle kind of step in? It just doesn't really seem to be that much of a difference from last year. The only standout, and he was really the consistent standout until he went down last year, was Tano Passignon, who shows the ability to play, as a tackle on the edge and just chase down plays with a lot of speed. There's one where he chased Driscoll out of bounds, and he was being double blocked, shed them both, and have the speed to get around them. But he is not going to be the end-all, be-all in the pass rush. So there has to be someone, I think, that's Yamada, or as a depth piece behind, who would be Granderson or Jordan on the edge.
Maddy Hudak is with us. She's on Twitter at Maddy Hudak _94. That's MADDYHUDAK. All right, let's flip it over to the offense, because that's probably what everybody wants to talk about anyway. Look, no Jameis, no Kamara, no Michael Thomas, no Jarvis, no problem. I mean, the first team offense went right down the field and scored. Was there a big takeaway from the 10-play touchdown drive to open the game for the Saints?
Really, that if Jameis Winston goes down at any point in the season, this is probably the most comfortable backup situation I think the Saints would stay, since Teddy Bridgewater went down there. They were all kind of always looking for that backup archetype behind Drew Brees. I know it's no longer his offense, but it's still Pete Carmichael, and it's still, that short intermediate passing game, getting the ball out to the flat. Dwayne Washington was really good in concert with Andy Dalton, but he just knows how to execute it back there. I mean, he was 5 for 5. He kind of had a good sense of interior pressure when it was time to take off, and he scrambled for about 7 yards and knew how to slide, which is an important thing. But, talk about getting the ball out quickly, the ball out in the flat, taking those check downs and those dump offs, never really trying to be the hero, but just really executing the system almost flawlessly. And it's one of those things that if he did have to go in for an extended period of time, there really, to me, is no issue at all, especially behind what I thought was a pretty well executed starting offensive line. Credit to Andres Pete in particular for that.
When does Traquan Smith get cut?
I mean, he and Ian Book are kind of holding hands, walking that way. He did not really help the case for himself or for Book, for that matter. I think, we kind of be talking about Book a little bit differently if Smith had at least caught that catchable touchdown pass in the end zone and maybe not, punch the ball in the air for someone to intercept. That's not to take, all of the responsibility away from Book. But, Smith, he flashes in training camp, he flashes in practice, and then he gets hurt a lot. And that's not really, something to come out and make a case for yourself. We all know he can block against the run, but they have a lot of, at this point, really dangerous pass catchers. And Marquez Callaway at this point has both that durability and that consistency. So he really kind of needs that good game next week.
I mean, could they just cut him today? I mean, just to be rid of. I believe, you, I don't know if you'll learn, but I mean, I am. He is so dead to me on this team. I'm just anyway. Look, a lot of conversation about Trevor Penick, and there was the Pro Football Focus rating, which had him rated as the highest rated rookie week 1 of the preseason. But a lot of people saw the pressures that he gave up. So, make sense of Trevor Penick's debut for us.
It almost kind of is that idea on draft night where, he was really raw and just kind of this aggressive, a dog mentality type guy. You see that come out in the fights during camp. So with someone like that, that's a little much, kind of like an untamed stallion almost. He was kind of having issues with inside pressure and guys that were winning with speed. Kind of getting that first step off the line is going to be really, really important because interior pressure is something for guys that aren't really mobile in the pocket. Even for someone like Ian Book, who is kind of evasive back there, is it in the pocket for them at all? Whereas James Hurst, at this point has been a little more consistent. But that's kind of the idea with someone that's kind of raw as a rookie is hopefully, once he gets that technique down, he showed enough flashes and that aggression that should hopefully get more refined. But he's someone that I'm curious to see if he improves on those areas that were very clearly obvious struggles on that edge.
One thing that I don't know that many people have talked about, though, Maddy, also you and I talked about last week, Will Lutz. Just seeing Will Lutz kick in a game was pretty awesome as well. I mean, what I think you said last week, you cannot overstate the importance of him from a year ago.
It really is a sight for sore eyes. It's, again, just the given of, this is at least, 3 points on this drive. That was really the issue last year was they almost have to score because they're probably not going to be able to convert 2 points. That was an issue. They're not having any luck kicking extra points or kicking 3 points. And the Saints, a lot of the time in the past, have won games just by making field goals on well-timed drives. So just to almost have that given back there of it, with the 40-yard field goal, no one's really thinking about it because it's Will Lutz and he's really back to full form, missing all but one kick all of camp.
Hey, Maddy, before you go, running back is something that I've focused on a lot here, even since before the draft. The Abram Smith fumble really stunk, but was there anything among the 3 guys that we got to see that stood out for you?
Well, Tony Jones Jr., he's really made a case for himself this offseason, right? I mean, he's really looked sharp in training camp, both, in the run game and getting involved in the passing game. As we brought up his wheel route touchdown a few weeks back, but people might not know that he played with Ian Dame, and you could really tell that they were kind of seamless communication when Book was in the game. But you're kind of always hoping for someone to have that archetype of Mark Ingram to kind of back him up and be that complement to the running style of someone like Alvin Kamara. And I think he had a couple runs up to 6, despite being, at that point on that O-line that wasn't really creating that strong of a pocket. Looking at a pause plays right now, that's just slightly alarming. But Tony Jones found his way through his power. So I think he's definitely one of those risers that is making a case to be on this roster.
She is Maddy Hudak on Twitter at Maddy Hudak _94. Saints traveling up to Green Bay today. They'll have joint practices with the Packers and then play this weekend. Anything in particular this week, Maddy, I'll put you on the spot, that you maybe want to see come out of these joint practices with Green Bay, aside from just obviously staying healthy?
I would like to say pass rush. That doesn't really happen in these kind of games. I think I need to see a little more from Ian Book, just because Dalton is so locked up shut. When there's no pass rush and Book is still holding on to the ball too long in training camp, that's really an issue. So even though there's no pass rush in this practice, I really hope that he kind of comes onto his own, and I'll be curious to see how Penning kind of does against someone that's not his teammate, that they're kind of been getting in everyone's face day in and day out, and see if he kind of refines that inside himself.
Maddy Hudak, Saints Insider, giving us our Saints camp reports all throughout camp, recapping Saturday's preseason opener against the Texans. Maddy, we appreciate it. We'll talk again later. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.